Hey everyone, I am Pauluna, a CC creator for The Sims 4, and in this video I will teach you how to become a CC creator yourself. I already made a similar video back in 2022, but since then a lot has changed, even my own skills, so I think after almost 2 years it's a good time to make a new video. This video is for complete beginners, and unlike in my old video, here we will be modifying a full body outfit for adult females instead of a top for toddlers, because I think most of you are way more interested in clothes for adults. Of course, you can use the same techniques I will show you to create stuff for kids, toddlers and infants as well. If you want to see more videos about CC making, leave a like and subscribe to let me know. I hope you're ready for this journey, and please don't worry if you get stuck somewhere. Just repeat the steps over and over again, maybe on different days, so that your brain has time to process all the information. Learning new things takes a lot of time. Let's go! Before we can do anything, we need the right software. You obviously should have The Sims 4 on your PC and started it at least one time, so all the data about the assets in the game is on your device. Then we need Sims 4 Studio, Blender, and a photo editing tool of your choice. I normally use Photoshop for this, but in this video I will show you how to use GIMP, as this one is free to use. To lead you to the right download websites, I will link my own website in the description. Here you can find all the right links. Starting with Sims 4 Studio, download the installer and install the file. This website will also give you the information about the current Blender version. As I am always a fan of new stuff, we will use Blender version 4.2. It's also linked on my website. Download the MSI file and install it as well. And last but not least, we will install GIMP. With everything now installed, we will start in Sims 4 Studio. Sims 4 Studio is a powerful tool with which you can do a lot. So feel free to click through and take a look at everything to familiarize yourself with it a little. Also fill in this field with your creator name. In the settings, please check if your Blender software is connected properly. Mine has an old version in it, so I will just replace the version with a new version. Restart Sims 4 Studio to save it. Our plan is to modify a jumpsuit into a dress, so let's look for all the things we need. Go into Tools, then select Browse Game Content and then CAS. This will open a catalog of all the CAS assets you have in your game. The more expansion packs you have, the more you will see. For everyone to be able to copy what I'm doing here, I'm going to choose this jumpsuit from the base game, and we will turn it into a short dress. On the right side you can see a preview of the asset. By holding the middle mouse button, you can move the model. By holding and dragging the right mouse button, you can rotate the model. And a funny thing I learned literally a couple of days ago, and purely by accident, is that when you hold Alt and move up or down while holding the right mouse button, you can change the view. Not necessary at all, but it's nice to know. If we change into the second tab, the Textures tab, you will get an overview of all the textures. We have the diffuse texture, which is the main texture you see, so the one with all the colors. The shadow texture is for the game to know where the shadows of your asset would be on the Sim's body. The specular texture is for the shine of your asset. With it you can control areas of your texture that you want to be really glossy or glittery and so on. The normal map is for extra 3D effects on a 2D texture. For example, to make drawn-on buttons look like they are stitched onto the asset. The emission texture is for glow effects. And the color shift mask is a new texture that was introduced in March this year, but I don't know the purpose of it yet and I couldn't find any information. For our project, we need to export some of the textures. But first, let's prepare a project folder. This is the structure I use for my personal projects. We have a place for each kind of texture, and all my Blender files I usually just drop here in the main folder. You can of course work as you want, but it can get really cluttered in one single folder, so a structure might be helpful. Now export the diffuse and the shadow texture. The specular we will let generate by SIMS 4 Studio in this case, and the normal texture we have to create manually later. Next, take a look at the Meshes tab in SIMS 4 Studio. Here we can export the mesh of our asset. The mesh is basically the pure model of the asset. No texture, just clay that is formed into a shape. Export the mesh into your project folder and let's call it Mesh. So, we now have grabbed everything from the asset we want to modify. To continue, we need to look for something that we want to mix the jumpsuit with. As said before, I want to make a dress out of it, so let's pick something that fits this idea. This one is great. As with the jumpsuit, export the diffuse and the shadow texture and the mesh into your project folder. This mesh we will call short dress. Once this is done, we can continue with the fun part. In your project folder, open the blend file with the name mesh. That's where we will work in. The shortcut for saving is Ctrl S. Use this as much as you can. Your Blender should now look exactly like this. If it's not looking like this, check the Blender path in SIMS 4 Studio again. Here in Blender we have three main areas: left, center, and right. Let's start in the center. Here we have our model. Scroll up or down to zoom in or out. You can move around with Shift and dragging the middle mouse button, and rotate by holding the middle mouse button. Do this a few times until you feel confident in your movement to continue. Now some extra information about the model. We are working with a full body outfit. This means you can only click and modify the areas of the full body. This goes from the neck to the end of the leg. You can't click the head nor the feet. The rest of a Sims body is still there, it's just hidden. And this is where we look at the right side of Blender. At the top right, we see four things, starting with S4 Studio Mesh. These are all the parts the jumpsuit contains of. By clicking on them, you see an orange outline on the model. With the eye icon, you can hide the parts. We also have the rig, which is basically the skeleton of the sim and controls the movement. If you open up the rig by clicking on the little arrow, you see all the body parts of a sim. Here you can also see that the bottom is hidden, because the asset we exported is a full body outfit and does not have a separate bottom. That's just the handy side information you maybe need if you're making your own meshes and need the bottom part to know where the booty is, for example. Now back to the mesh. Why is it split into multiple parts, so-called mesh groups? In this case, because of shoes. This way the asset knows where to split when wearing different shoes in the game. If you want to know more about this, I have a video for this on my channel. Sometimes a mesh you open in Blender has a lot more mesh groups, which probably has a good reason, but we CC creators usually work with one when it's possible. So let's join them. On the right side, click the first one and then shift-click the last one. Move your mouse into the center and press Ctrl J on your keyboard. Now you should have one mesh group. Great! Click on your model and press Tab, or go manually into Edit mode here at the bottom, and you will see the texture of a sim and a grid on the left side and a grid on your model. The first thing you do now is to click on this 2 arrow symbol, the UV Sync selection. This will synchronize the selection you make on either the left side or the model. Here we move around by holding the middle mouse button. We see a lot of dots. This is a vertex. This is an edge. And this is a face. Just to add more words into our Blender vocabulary. You can make selections by dragging and dropping the mouse. Or pressing B and then drag and drop. Or pressing C and draw. Scroll up or down to change the size of this tool. With A we can select everything, and with Ctrl I we invert the selection. To make this jumpsuit into a dress, we have to delete the bottom part of the jumpsuit. You can do this by deleting the parts on the UV map, that's here, or directly on the model. I will do it on the model to show you some more cool options. Click on this green circle and you will get a straight view on your model. If we now select the part we don't want anymore by drag and drop, we will not get everything. To get everything, we have to change into the wireframe mode. That's this one here. And now we got everything. Press X and delete the vertices. If you made a mistake, use Ctrl Z to go back. Now press Tab to see what we got. Nice. Next we need our other mesh. In the top left corner, click File, Append, then double-click the short dress file, double-click on the object folder, and then double-click on S4 Studio Mesh 1. If you used another mesh that has more than one of them, always select all the Sims 4 Studio mesh groups. And here we have the other mesh. Let's make the jumpsuit invisible for now by clicking on the eye icon. So, we can delete rig 001 and bone shape 001. Just click them and press X. Now all we have to do is to delete the part of this mesh that we don't need. This time I will show you the UV map way. Change into edit mode. First I will select the arms because I can clearly see that these are the arms. Mouse into the center, then X, then delete vertices. 2 big areas left. The left area belongs to the body. But what is this? I know what it is, but if you're not sure about something on the UV map, just select it and take a look at your model in the center. It's the bottom of the dress. This one we need, so we don't delete it. But we delete some parts of the top. Just like that. Okay, make the jumpsuit visible again. If you now click on the bottom part and move it around with G, you will see that it's overlapping with the jumpsuit. We don't want that, so we delete another row. That's better. Okay, very good. Now we notice that the dress is a bit wider than the jumpsuit, and for a better result, I would suggest that we adjust the jumpsuit to make it fit with the dress. In Edit mode, we again pick the green circle for a frontal view. By the way, if you have a numpad, just click the number 1. Now click this little circle, the proportional editing tool, and then click on one vertex. Press G and scroll up until you see a circle about that size. Then right-click so we don't mess up our mesh. Change into Wireframe mode and select a couple of rows. Then change back into the material preview. Now click on the Transform tool and adjust the mesh with the red cube, not the arrow. Alternatively, you can press S, then X, and move your mouse to get the same result, but more complicated, which makes you look like a professional. When we go back into Object mode and look around, we see a big gap in the back. Select some part of the back and use the green arrow to move it. With G, adjust the area of the proportional editing when needed, so that the bare back is not affected by it. That's a good result. Now let's check if we can join both parts together. Select both by holding Shift and go into Edit mode. If we see part of the UV maps are overlapping, we have to make adjustments. And yes, our UV maps are overlapping. In this case, I would move the dress UV a bit down so that the texture of the jumpsuit can stay where it is. Select the dress part and move it a bit down with G and Y. Because we are still in proportional editing mode, the whole UV will move smoothly. If we deactivate proportional editing, it will look like this. If you use proportional editing, it is important that you don't move static things like the legs, otherwise the leg texture will look different and maybe weird. Now that we fixed this overlapping, we only have to fix one other. Here at the bottom of the dress and a back detail of the jumpsuit. A tip from me, always smooth the one that has less complicated texture. In our case, both are not really complicated, but I will choose the bottom of the dress one, because our main texture is the jumpsuit one. So select the jumpsuit texture here at the bottom, and then select the part on the UV map. Use L to get the part without also selecting the other stuff. And then, without proportional editing, size it down with S and move it with G to a different spot. After cleaning up the UV map, let's join both mesh groups together. Go into Object mode, select the first mesh group, then Shift-click the other mesh group, cursor to the center, and Ctrl J. I now want to get a glimpse of what our end result will look like. So I will get rid of the dress texture on my model. Go into the Material tab, click the second diffuse map, and then get rid of it with the minus. We will ignore the fact that the texture is now on the legs. What is important is the transition of the area where we cut our old meshes. Not looking good yet, but it's also not properly connected. In Edit mode, we now have to connect the vertices that belong together. The easiest way to do this is with the UV map. Select both vertices, cursor to the center, press M for merge, and then at center. The vertices on the model are now connected, but the ones on the UV map not. You have to merge them too by pressing M and then at center on the UV map. Do this with every vertex pair. Little by little, you will see how the gaps close and the texture starts to look better. Almost done with the mesh. At the top, there is a tab called UV Editing. Here you can take a look at your mesh without a texture. This will help you identify gaps or other things like these lines. They don't look pretty, so we want to get rid of them. I call this process cleaning up the mesh, and it's usually the last thing I do. Click on your mesh, go into edit mode, select everything with A, press M and merge by distance. All overlapping vertices will now merge. The lines disappear, but we get new ugly areas, for example this shadow at the bottom or this here at the back. In edit mode, select the edge of the dress and press V. Then right click. And for the back, we will use the edge select. Just change it here at the bottom and then select all the edges that need a cut. This triangle here, those two lines, and this one. Separate them with a V and right click. These parts look broken now, so we change into vertex select, look for that area and then merge by distance again. Perfect. Oh, this one didn't split, so we do it again. Select edge select, select the edges, press V, then right click. Mesh looks pretty clean. Now we have to check one little thing. In the Scene tab, you will find a cut number. Make sure that this number is 0. That's because we only work with one mesh group. For meshes with more mesh groups, you will need to give each mesh group a different number. I made a video about mesh groups a while ago. You can find it on my channel. So let's save this one with Ctrl S and make the texture. Open GIMP or a photo editing tool of your choice. Then drag the jumpsuit texture into the window. Also drag the dress texture into the window. We now have 2 layers in here. Hold Ctrl and scroll to zoom in and out. With the rectangle select the area of the jumpsuit that we don't need. Make sure you are on the jumpsuit layer, then press delete on your keyboard. Let's hide the dress layer for now. There are probably thousands of ways to continue. I will just show you, in my opinion, the easiest way to get a nice result. I will use the healing tool, pick a nice clean area and then cover the lines. Then when I have a big area that looks good, I use the rectangle select tool to copy this bit with Ctrl C, paste it with Ctrl V, move it with the move tool, and then anchor the floating layer. To blend in the area, I use the Smudge tool. Now we have a pretty decent result. Little excursion into Photoshop. There you can select areas, right-click and make a content-aware fill. The results are very good most of the time, and it's definitely faster than the method I used in GIMP. GIMP doesn't have an integrated content-aware fill option, but you can look for plugins. Other photo editing tools maybe also have an integrated content-aware fill option. Just Google it. If we want to take a first look on it, export a PNG file and go back to Blender. In the Material tab, look for this area. Open it, delete the diffuse map with the little X, and open your created texture. Looks great. Now time to make some color variants. I will replicate the method I used in Photoshop. It's a bit annoying to set up in GIMP because there is no option to automate it, but if you want to get amazing results without paying for Photoshop, it's worth it to do it like this. First, we have to put a grayscale on our base image. In the Colors tab, pick Saturation and turn it all the way down. Then we have to turn down the brightness a bit so that the base is not clear white, but more gray. It's also in the Colors tab. Also play with the contrast so that we can still recognize the details of the outfit. Now just follow my instructions. Create a new layer with the mode Soft Light. Then create 2 new layers with the mode Multiply. The second layer should have the opacity 25%. Now pick the jumpsuit layer and duplicate it. Right-click, duplicate layer. Place the layer between the top 2 white layers. Big shout out to SIMS on Tumblr for this method I use for several years now. It's amazing, I love it. To now create a new color swatch, pick a color of your choice and with the bucket fill tool, fill all 3 white layers. Oh, I forgot, the copy has to be in soft light mode. Way better. And now your first swatch is ready. I will export it with the name 1 and then I will make 2 more color variants. Alright, now it's time for Sims 4 Studio again. In the CAS area you see 4 options. From what I could gather from the Sims 4 Studio forum, Create CAS Standalone and Create 3D Mesh do the same thing. If you're a Mac user, you will only have the option Create CAS Standalone. With Add CAS Part Swatch, we can add more swatches to an asset. And with Override, we can override an object. In our case, we want to create a new asset, so pick one of the 2 first options. Because I always do it this way, I choose Create 3D Mesh to be safe. Then click on the big blue CAS button. We now have to pick an asset that acts as our base. It's always the best to get something similar to the thing we made, so a full body outfit for a feminine adult sim. And another thing that is important when choosing the base asset is the number of mesh groups. We have 1 mesh group in our Blender file, so we look for something with only 1 mesh group. These are all the assets we can use. Pro tip: Always use something from the base game and your asset will be automatically base game compatible. I will use this one. Click Next. Now you have to save your package file. I suggest to save it in your mods folder, so you don't have to drag it in there later. Choose a recognizable name for your file, and please always start with your creator name. This makes it so much easier for people to find your stuff between all the other stuff if you decide to share your creations with others. Okay, we see a familiar interface. Import your first diffuse texture. Looks almost good, but the right mesh is missing. In the Meshes tab, import your mesh. Very good. Back in the Textures tab, pick the color of the swatch with the Color Picker tool and add your other swatches. Okay, so far so good. Now we move on to the last steps. We need a shadow texture. For this, we go back to GIMP. Save your file to make more swatches later. Then close the view. We exported the shadow textures of our assets a while ago. Drag both of them into the window. For the jumpsuit, we need to delete the bottom. For the dress, we need to delete the top. Hide one of the layers, select the area that has to go, and delete it. Then do the same for the other layer. Now we add a new white layer for the background. The mode has to be set back to normal and the opacity to 100%. Bring the layer all the way down. Now export the shadow and import it into Sims 4 Studio. As said before, I will not cover the specular in this video. For most of the pieces you create, it's not necessary anyway. Just click the Make Blank button and the default specular map will be generated for you. The normal map is something a bit tricky again. Open your GIMP texture file and hide all the layers except the base one. Export this one and call it Base. Now open this new image in GIMP. Select the Image tab and choose Canvas Size. Change the height to 1024 and make sure that the bottom of the image is selected. The offset should be -1024. Then click Resize. Now add a new white layer and put it in the background. Export this image. To create the normal, we Google Normal Map Generator. The first result should be this website. Drag the image into the left field. Now we have to make some adjustments to the settings. Your goal is to create a normal map that acts like an overlay on your texture. Creases have to go into the texture, not like this. I hope you understand what I mean. Also, don't make it look too strong. Something like this should work fine. Download this image. Then we need a blank GIMP window again. Drag your downloaded normal map into GIMP. You will find the texture in your Downloads folder. And now we have to do some steps that are always the same. If you do this a couple of times, you will remember the order. In the Colors tab, choose Components and then Decompose. For the color model, we need to choose RGBA. Click OK. Click the layer with the name Red, Ctrl A, then Ctrl C to copy it. Select the alpha layer and with Ctrl V, we paste the red layer into it. Anchor the floating layer. Then copy the green layer and paste it into the red and the blue layer. In the Colors tab again, select Components and then Recompose. Now close this tab and what's left is the semi-transparent normal map. Export the normal map into your project folder and import it into SIMS for Studio. That's done. Now onto the Meshes tab. What vertices are, we already know from Blender. Polygons are all the triangles the mesh consists of. The more vertices and polygons a mesh has, the more performance your PC needs to load the assets. Max as Match CC is characterized by the look of the texture and the low number of polygons. Alpha CC, on the other hand, has a lot of polygons for an ultra-realistic look. If you use a lot of Alpha CC, your game may start to stutter. The level of details help to optimize the performance of your game. When you are really close to your Sims, you will see this level of detail. If you zoom out, you will see this, then this, then this. You see, the number of vertices and polygons is decreasing. This is something we also want to make for our own asset. For this, we need Blender. Go back to your mesh. Save it as a new file. I call it LOD. Now merge all vertices by distance. Just like we did earlier, but this time we don't care about shadows or weird areas. Next, in the Modifiers tab, add a Decimate modifier. Check the Triangulate option. And now decrease the ratio. For the first LOD, I turn it down until about here. Save with Ctrl S. Then import this file into LOD1. Next, I set the ratio to about the half. Save and import into LOD2. And for LOD3, I go down as much as I can without it looking completely distorted. These were the LODs. Last but not least, we have to check the Categories tab. Customize all options in any case. Everyone is happy about it, especially if you get the colors right. At the bottom, there are 3 things I want to explain quickly. Allow for randoms, you should usually uncheck as a CC creator. Otherwise, all new generated townies in the game will start to wear this particular dress, and I don't think that we want that. Restrict opposite gender will disallow male Sims to wear this dress. Don't select this one. If you don't want male Sims to wear dresses, okay, you do you, but let people at least have the option. At the top, in the fashion selection area, you can check females and uncheck males. This will still give male Sims the option to pick the asset in CAS when the male filter is unchecked. Sometimes feminine frame meshes will look really distorted when you put them on a male framed body. If you think it looks very bad, you can check the restrict opposite frame option and the asset will not appear for, in this case, male framed Sims. There's a 4th tab in SIMS for Studio where you can add buffs to your clothing, but for this tutorial I will just cover the basics, and for that we are done. Save your file and start your game to see a result. There are many sources for mistakes along the way, from start to finish, that I can't cover here because everything can happen so individually. If you can't help yourself with Google or my other videos, feel free to visit my Discord server where I and others will help you with your problem. I have also some tips and tricks videos on my channel to become a more professional CC creator. For example, how to make thumbnails or how to group your CC in CAS. Definitely check them out. Wow, if you stayed until the end, I am really proud of you. You did a great job. See you next time. Bye!